And I'm Tanner.
And you're listening to the Sencilla podcast, a conversation about simplicity.
Okay, what is up, guys? This is Tanner from Sailing Sencilla. Sorry it's been a while, but we're back with another episode. Today is going to be episode 13, Conquering the Gulf Stream and Checking into Cuba. So that sounds like a fun thing to talk about, right? I mean, there's some pretty interesting information that happened with Cuba recently, and also the Gulf Stream is always something fun to talk about. So I guess before we get into this, I'll talk about where we're at currently. We are in Rio Dulce, Guatemala. We made it all the way down here. And we're hanging out at a marina to wait out hurricane season. Because if you don't know, during hurricane season, big hurricanes can come through the Caribbean. And a lot of people will either risk it, as far as staying in the Caribbean, or heading north, west, or south to try to get out of the hurricane belt. And a lot of people can't, or I would imagine probably no people can get insurance on their boat in the middle of, in the Caribbean, inside the hurricane belt during hurricane season. So that's another reason why, pretty much everybody leaves, or at least if they try to, or, I don't know. Sure, there's a lot of people that stay there, but most people are trying to get their boats out of the hurricane belt during the hurricane season because you can't insure it and you potentially can have your boat destroyed by a hurricane. So, we chose to go down the west coast of the Caribbean, the Western Caribbean. So we did Cuba, Mexico, Belize, Guatemala. And at the southwest tip, there's an L shape, right? So as you go down the southern tip of Belize into Guatemala, there's a river, there's an opening into the ocean. There's a river that runs upstream a long ways into Lake Isabel, or whatever. And it's this big, massive lake, and there's this big river that's very deep. And so a lot of cruisers will head to Guatemala in order to go up that river, 15 miles, 10 miles or so, and be out of the hurricane belt in fresh water and be inland, 10, 15 miles with lots of mountains around to protect them from hurricanes. It's a very well-known hurricane hole, right? A lot of people come here. So it was kind of amazing when you get here because there's just thousands of cruisers and boats and stuff. It's kind of insane. You wouldn't really expect it. It's pretty interesting, but I'm sure we'll get to that later. But anyways, so that's where we are now. So then we'll talk about Patreon. We have a couple patrons. Thank you so much. And okay, also YouTube support. Go watch our YouTube channel if you haven't seen it. We have cool videos. At least we try to make them cool, of our adventure so far. Go like, comment, and subscribe and watch them. You don't have to just listen to me talk. You can watch the videos. And then merch. So we have a bunch of merch that we bought, pre-made and everything. We have some cool trucker hats. We have sweet Yetis with our logo on them. Those things will last forever. And we also have sweet stickers you can slap on your laptop or your Nalgene or your Hydro Flask or whatever, or your Yeti mug. So go check it out. It's on our website, or you can, if you follow us on Facebook, there's a Facebook store, so you can buy the stuff if you want off of there. Okay, so let's get into this. We're going to talk about Gulf Stream, the Gulf Stream, which is kind of like this scary thing that everybody talks about, the Gulf Stream, it's so scary, whatever. And it can be, I'm sure. I've never been in it when it's been bad, but I'll tell you what, if you look at the map and where the Gulf Stream goes, it runs all the way down just on the east side of Mexico, Belize, and into Guatemala. So I've basically been sailing in the Gulf Stream since we left Florida, pretty much the whole time, all the way. It's been in the Gulf Stream, and it's pretty annoying. But yeah. So if you've never heard of the Gulf Stream, or maybe you've heard of it, but you don't even know what it is. So what is it? So this is the direct definition of this thing. So it's a current basically, right? So the Gulf Stream, together with its northern extension, the North Atlantic Drift, is a warm and swift Atlantic Ocean current that originates in the Gulf of Mexico and stretches to the tip of Florida and follows the eastern coastlines of the United States and Newfoundland before crossing the Atlantic Ocean as the North Atlantic Current. The Gulf Stream is typically 100 kilometers or 62 miles wide and 800 meters, 2,600 feet to 1,200 meters or 3,900 feet deep. The current velocity is fastest near the surface, with the maximum speed typically about 2.5 meters per second or 5.6 miles per hour, or, 2 to 5 knots or something like that, right, for us boaties. So it's a current, right? It brings warm water from the Gulf, and it takes it all the way up to the north part of the northeast coast and all the way across over into like Ireland and England and everything. It's a pretty important system. But anyways, that's not really important to sailors other than the fact that it's got some crazy current. That's what really matters to you, So it's wide. It's 62 miles wide, and you get it says up to 5.6 miles per hour. That's crazy. And so that can if you know anything about sailing, which I don't know much about, but I know enough to know this. But if you know anything about sailing, one of the most dangerous conditions you can be in as far as like the sea state, right? Like one of the worst things you can be in is a lot of wind and big waves, right? That's not good. That's where it gets bad. So, and when waves can get really bad, a lot of times is when there's current opposing the wind, right? So current opposing the wind direction. So current's going one way, the wind's blowing the other way. The waves can stack up. They can get tall and nasty, and they can come from all over the place. Typically you kind of have like a general direction of your swell, and it typically is following the wind. But when they're opposing, you can get some crazy swell that's going all over the place. They call it the washing machine effect. And until you've been in it, it's kind of hard to imagine. But yeah, so what do you not want to do? Or I guess, in what condition do you not want to be in the Gulf Stream? And kind of what I just said. You do not want to be in the Gulf Stream when there's wind opposing it, especially when it's high wind. That's where it gets very dangerous, and people break their boats. People can get hurt. It's not good. So if you think about it, that part of Florida, it runs between Florida and Cuba. That's how it's kind of relating to this specific point in time in the story, is that we cross from Florida to Cuba, crossing the Gulf Stream, because it runs between Cuba and Florida. And so a lot of that passage, it's about 90 miles or so. 62 miles of that is the Gulf Stream. So you're pretty much in that the whole time. And think about that. It's running from west to east and then continues around Florida and goes north. So it's moving to the east. If you look at the wind in that part of the world, typically it's blowing out of the east most of the time. Maybe not so much. No, maybe not as consistent as like the trade winds down like in the Caribbean or whatever. But most of the time, if you look at the map, if you look at the wind, windy or predict wind, the wind is coming out of the east. So what you have right there is a part of that Gulf Stream current that almost always has the wind opposing it, right? Which is what we said you don't want to be in. So you have to be pretty careful, or at least I decided to be very careful about when we were going to cross this little strip of the Gulf Stream. So what did I not want to be in was an easterly wind, which is very common most of the time. And so what did we decide to do? So when we got down to Key West, we were just going to wait out a weather window, right? We were going to find a window where the wind would not be coming directly out of the east, directly opposing that current. And so there was a little front that came through, like one of the northerlies came through, and the wind's blowing out of the north, so it's blowing south, which is the direction we want to go. And once it passed, it basically kind of blew the wind out all in that area. So we had very light winds for a day or a couple days, like 2 days. So that's what we decided to do. It was supposed to be 10 to 12 knots out of the north, so a wind blowing south. So if you think about that, that's a 90-degree angle to the current, and it's blowing us the direction that we want to go. We want to go south. So I can't think of a better weather window for crossing the Gulf Stream. Maybe you do know something that I don't. And you should shoot us a email or comment on Facebook or something like that, or the YouTube video, and tell us what you think. What would you do, or what have you done that was easier or makes it, better or whatever? I don't know. But that's what we decided to do. 10 to 12 knots out of the north. We're heading south. So we're not going to deal with the wind opposing the current, and it's going to be behind us. So it should be good sailing, right? So what ended up happening was it was mostly 8 to 10 knots. So it was pretty slow. Something that we didn't really realize because we were just so new is that, when you're going downwind, really light wind is difficult to sail in. It's actually pretty easy to sail downwind with a lot of wind, and it's not fun to sail upwind with a lot of wind, right? If you're going upwind, a light wind is actually kind of nice because you're squeezing yourself between the wind and off the wind, and you're kind of riding that line, and it makes you go pretty quick. But if there's a lot of wind, you're heeling over real far, and it's not that enjoyable, really. But downwind, if you have hardly any wind, you barely move. So we were going downwind in only 8 to 10 knots, and so basically what that means is we were going pretty slow. It took a long time to cross that to cross the current, and that current pushes you. It pushes you a long way. We went southwest about 40 miles before we turned direct south to try to offset the current, and we still ended up 20 miles, 15 miles east of Havana. Yeah, so we had to make that ground up all along the coast. And so that's against the current. So what ended up happening was once we got across the Gulf Stream, it took us a long time. Then the easterlies came back. And so we were heading we were heading west with the easterly wind, so it's behind us. And we got to make up 10, 15 miles to the entrance to Marina Hemingway. And we're now opposing the Gulf Stream. And so we got, 3 hours of what it's like in 15 to 20 knots easterly against the easterly current, against the current. And it got kind of scary. I mean, for someone who's pretty new, it was pretty scary. The waves got steep. They got very confused. And it was pretty insane. And that's how we entered the marina in that. So like into the channel, right? So anyways, what would I do differently? If we had to do it again, I think I may have waited. I mean, you can never wait for the perfect window. So I don't know if I would have done it any differently. It would have been nice if we would have had a little bit more wind from behind, maybe it would have been calling for 15 to 18 knots from behind. That would have been nice. It may have been a little rougher, but we would have actually gotten there pretty quick. Our boat's pretty slow anyway, but that's what I think. Maybe a little more wind, but I don't think I would have done it with a different wind direction. It was perfect. And I would have also, this is what I would do differently now that I'm thinking about it. Absolutely, I would have gone all the way to the Dry Tortugas, which is like 70 miles west of Key West, and use that as my staging point. The only reason we didn't do that was because we didn't have time. We would miss the weather window if we didn't just leave. So we went straight from Key West. So if we would have, or at least we could have just went further west. I don't know, but we needed to get further west because the current, we didn't know how far it would push us to the east, and it pushed us pretty far. So that's what I would do differently next time. But the direction was good. The sea state was good for most of it until it turned east, and then I saw what it was really like in the Gulf Stream. But yeah, that's what I would do differently. You should let us know. Let us know what you think. If you're experienced in the Gulf Stream or in current, what are your best practices? What do you guys or gals typically do? I'm curious because I've had a little bit of experience now in current most of the time we've been sailing, and it's tough. It's very interesting experience. Like when you get out of it, it's pretty nice. Like once you're in like just a regular sea state, nothing's kind of making there's not that variable there. You're like, wow, this is nice. I wish it was just always like this. But we spent a lot of time. I sound probably jaded. We spent a lot of time in a lot of opposing current, which is tough. Okay, so there's your Gulf Stream part. Fun times. Now let's talk about Cuba. I see. Man, we did so much research trying to figure out if we were even allowed to go to Cuba. Like, were they going to let us in? It was like so hard to find information. We used Noonsite, which most cruisers probably use, but man, it was not easy to find good information that was up to date. Very, very difficult. And so we kind of just did it. From what we could tell as far as the legality of it, the State Department basically doesn't want you to go there, but it's not technically illegal. You're not not allowed to go there as an American. There are caveats to that saying reasons why you can go there. So we followed those as best we could make out from the guidance or law. I don't know if it's a law, but whatever. You know what I mean? And so we went and ended up being totally fine. It was funny. We actually got pulled over by the Coast Guard in Key West, and they asked us, where we were going next and whatever. And I said Cuba, and he said, "Well, this was a young, he was like a, younger guy. I don't know if he had too much knowledge on the current situation or what the laws really were, but he said, do you have proper authorization? I'm like, what are you talking about? I didn't talk to him anymore about it, but I just said yes, but." I don't know what he's talking about. I did my research. I'm used to government bureaucracy from being in the military, and I couldn't figure out anything other than what the State Department guidance was, which was basically you need a license to go there, but they don't actually give you a license. It's like a on your own honor system, and they just give you 14 or 12 reasons that you're allowed to go there, right? Which one of them is just like support for the Cuban people. So basically, you need a license to go there to support the Cuban people, but you don't actually have to apply for the license. You just go, basically. So that's how we did it. And I could be wrong. Hey, you let me know. I don't know. But that's all I could get from it. And we've had no issues. So anyways, we show up to Cuba. You go through the marina entrance, which is, the channel's pretty crazy. Like it can be pretty crazy. Luckily, there's like some breakwater stuff going on where it kind of makes the entrance, it kind of breaks the swell a little bit, but still it's kind of sketchy. But you get in there, you pull up to the customs dock, you got to stop, and then we did the whole rigmarole of checking in, right? Which was basically, this was kind of nice because being into a few other countries, Cuba has a one-stop shop. It may be different in other ports of entry, but in Havana, it's pretty easy. It's one place. You do everything in one place, but you do have to stay at the marina, so you have to pay marina fees every day for as long as you're there, and you're not allowed to go anchor. There's nowhere to anchor in Havana, so that's the only place. So we had to take COVID tests, right? Emily was vaccinated. I wasn't. I had to take a COVID test, and so did she. And the rule at that time was we had to take our COVID test. We had to quarantine on our boat. We weren't allowed off the boat for 2 or 3 days until it came back. And then we were supposed to take another COVID test immediately following the first negative and then wait for the results to come back again before you could go anywhere, right? So you have to take 2 COVID tests in a row that are both negative, right? So we take our first one upon arrival. And then once you're done with checking in right there, they basically tell you what canal to go in. You move up and you get into your slip, which is just a side tie on a concrete wall. Pretty simple stuff. It's very protected and it's not an issue. It's totally fine. We got there. They hook you up with your water, electricity. That worked fine. You can't drink the water there though. So that became a situation later. But yeah, so we had to sit on the boat for a couple of days, which was okay, whatever. And this was a few months ago, But we got our negative test back. And then it's funny because the doctor was like, basically, so you have a negative COVID test. You guys can get off the boat. You can go to Havana, but you have to stay the night on your boat. You can't stay the night at a hotel in Havana. You have to come back and stay on your boat. And he said, you have to take your second COVID test on day 5. But if you're already gone or if you're not here and I can't find you, you just don't have to take it. And then if we just leave without having done it, it doesn't matter, which is kind of weird. So we took 1 COVID test, not 2. And so we quarantined 3 days. And after that, Emily had to take a test, which it was unbelievably difficult to find internet in Cuba. Don't go to Cuba thinking you're going to have Wi-Fi because there's very, very, very little Wi-Fi, if any. And it's very difficult to log on to it. You have to get a prepaid card, which is difficult to find, and it's only for like an hour. You only get like an hour at a time. Very crazy. Very different than America, obviously. And the other thing is there's no food and no water. As you probably saw from the Cuba news that's been coming around talking about rations and stuff like that. That's true. We saw people in lines getting food. None of the shelves had any food on them, or there was nothing. You would go into stores and there would be people working the store, and there would be no food or water. There would just be nothing. The shelves would be completely empty, and there would just be workers there. Or there may be a few items, very few items, and then but none of it was food. And it was really strange. It was pretty hard to get water. You can't draw money as an American there. It's just, it was pretty difficult to deal with. But we ended up getting through it, so whatever, it all worked out. But yeah, it's a pretty interesting place. Very cool place. The people are extremely nice. Havana is amazing, but it's just very, very strange, and not the most easy to navigate, but especially for Americans. But, what do you expect with our history? So anyways, we did get to experience Havana. We went to Havana. It was really cool. If you watch the video, you can see where we end up in this tiny little back room mojito bar, because we were wandering around all day trying to find food or a restaurant or something. I mean, we were just wandering around, and we ended up finding a street that actually had people on it and looks like some shops and stuff. And this guy grabbed us, pulled us aside. He clearly does this often when he sees Americans or tourists, and he said, "You guys are American? You looking for mojitos?" And we were like, "Yeah." Okay, and food? We're like, "Yeah." So this guy takes us down the street to his buddy's house, who has like a speakeasy bar at the bottom of it. And this guy's just mixing massive mojitos. And there's a couple other dudes there. And they have stickers all over the walls and paintings and tons of paraphernalia, crazy stuff. And I don't know if that's the right word. Memorabilia, not paraphernalia. Whatever. Memorabilia, crazy stuff. And a lot of people who had visited there put up currency from different countries they were from and signed it, or pictures or stickers or whatever. So we threw a sticker on there. They were playing reggae music. He made us some really good mojitos, and we talked with them for a long time. It was awesome. And then our little guide that we found, he took us to this restaurant that was totally not legit. It was definitely not legal. He took us to this family's home, which when you walk into, it was a multiple story home. You walk into the front door and it looks like somebody's house, right? But then they take you upstairs and it's like a restaurant. The upstairs has tables and chairs and tablecloths, and there's only 4 tables. And so they're totally not probably allowed to have that business, but they're just serving food to make money for their family. It was so crazy, but we ended up sitting down, having a really good seafood dinner. It was amazing because we had not had any food at all in Cuba. We weren't able to buy any food anywhere, so that was the first time we got to eat there or have a drink there. It was really interesting. And then we took a classic taxi ride, taxi cab. They're famous in Cuba for having classic 50s Chevrolets and stuff like that. And we took one of those home, back to the boat, and it was actually a really cool experience. So Havana was amazing. It was definitely, I could see how it would have been kind of a letdown if we wouldn't have met that guy and had kind of the adventure that we ended up having. But it was really cool. Some of the downsides of it were couldn't draw money. We had trouble getting currency to use. I think they're Cuban pesos. Very difficult to get it. We basically had to trade U.S. dollars, which is not, I don't think that's legal, but there's no other way to get any. We had to trade them Canadian dollars and American dollars. And we brought we brought Canadian dollars because we were under the impression from Noonsite that they would not take U.S. currency. But they do. They do take U.S. currency in most places, even though I don't know if they're allowed to, but they will. So we brought Canadian money, which they'll take that too. They'll take just about anything. But yeah, it was difficult to get water. We couldn't drink the water there. So we had to find bottled water, and then we couldn't buy it because they wouldn't let you pay in cash or something like that. So we had to give our cash to one of the guys that worked at the marina, and he used his debit card to buy it. It was very strange the way the system was working. But we were able to get some bottled water, but we got no food. And I also needed some oil, and we were not able to find any. It's not like you can go down to the Walmart and get Shell 15W40, good stuff. Like, you can't get that. You can't get anything. There's nothing there. There's no, like, when you go to the gas station, which are kind of few and far in between, there's nothing there. You're not buying nothing. We had a guy at the marina who works there, a really nice dude named Chicky. Chicky, if you're listening to this, which I'm sure you're not, I appreciate all your help. He tried to help us he got us a lot of stuff, but he tried to he said he would try to find us some oil. And I guess he just went around to guys he knows in the local area. And he was like, yeah, they don't really have anything, or they're trying to charge too much, or it's really poor quality oil. So I'm glad he didn't sell me some bull crap, right? I'm glad he didn't sell me some just total crap and like put it in another bottle or something and tried to sell it to me, which could have happened. But I appreciate his honesty, and he ended up not being able to help me, but it's better than ripping me off or giving me something that was going to hurt the boat. So I appreciate that. But yeah, that was kind of our Havana experience. And then, we didn't stay that long, only like 5 days or so. And then we got out of there as quickly as we could. We kind of realized that, this isn't the best place for us to be. We should definitely go ahead and move on and try to get to Mexico. And Emily had a flight. So yeah, we saw Havana, and then after that, we were like, let's leave. So funny story though. This is something that all people who sail know this. Do not ever leave your boat open, like your hatches or your port lights, when you leave the boat. And it hadn't rained in freaking like 3-4 weeks, a month and a half. It hadn't rained in so long, and we had no forecasted rain. So this is so dumb looking back on it, but we go to Havana and we left the port lights and the hatches open on our boat because it was so hot. We were like, we'll just leave it open. It'll be fine. Come back. It poured rain while we were gone. And literally the entire boat was wet. All of our cushions, our blankets, pillows, everything was soaking wet. Everything. And so we had to like lay out our entire inside, all of our, sheets and pillowcases and pillows and rugs and everything had to be out on the deck, out on the dock and everything. It was pretty bad. We never do that anymore. Like literally, if we're going to go to a restaurant for like 30 minutes and there's no chance of rain, not a cloud in the sky, we still close the boat every single time, no matter what, because we were scarred. But, and anyone who's a cruiser or sailor, they know that you don't do that. So we learned our lesson. Anyways, that's really all I have to say about the Gulf Stream and Cuba. So let me know, like, what do you guys think about Cuba? Like, would you go there or would you skip it? Most people skip it, but I've actually talked to a lot of other cruisers who've been through there recently and had a very similar experience and not a good experience. So would you go there? What do you think? Or what do you think about the Gulf Stream? Do you have any tips? Or, I don't know. Let me know what you think. But anyways, thanks for listening, guys. I know it's been a while. I'm going to try to do some more podcasts, but thanks for listening. If you want to support us, you can give us $1 on our Linktree. Just donate $1 if you want. Donate $5 if you want. You can buy a hat. You can buy a cool Yeti mug. You can buy a sticker. That'll support us. Just rate the podcast. If anything, just rate the podcast and or just keep listening. Subscribe. Go watch the YouTube videos and subscribe. That would help. But yeah, anyways, just thanks for the support. Thanks for listening. I really do appreciate it. Maybe on the next episode, Emily will make a comeback. She's currently in the U.S., so I'm just doing one solo because we haven't put one out in a while. But yeah, anyways, thanks, guys, and talk to you later. Peace. Hey, thanks, everybody, for tuning in to another episode of the Sencilla podcast. Please like, rate, comment, or share if you enjoyed the episode. If you'd like to support us, you can by subscribing to our YouTube channel or Patreon, where you can get some additional content and some cool swag. Check out our website at sailingsencilla.com, where you can learn more about us and our mission, and links to all the content we produce each week. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.